Welcome back to Film Crate Media. This is part 2 of the 3 videos that's covering my trip out to the East Broadtop this year. We got tickets for the early morning freight run on Saturday morning, so just as the sun was rising, we got to the station and 16 pulled in. Here's some of the shots as we moved backward throughout the yard. The train first backed up to 475 before heading north up to Colgate Grove and back. We see some of the hopper cars that are in line for restoration, some in better shape than others. There's one of the open air cars. And finally, some of the EBT MOW equipment. Before continuing south to 475, our conductor had to throw the switch by the coal tipple. Note the newly installed water spout right there by the end switch.
Yeah, it was worth the extra $10.
After our run, they backed into the yard, putting the coal train away, and they pulled out with the regular passenger consist for the rest of the day. Here comes Rock Hill Trolley Museum's 163. It's a former York Railways Company city and suburban car built by the Brill Company in 1924. It's a rare curved side car. After 163 pulled out, EBT 16 and the passenger train was ready to go around the Y. This is the only active section of dual gauge track on the EBT, and rarer still, this is the only time the EBT is technically under wire. Down at the Big Phil, we see the M3 scooting back to the station. Shortly after the M3 left, the 16 pulls out of Colgate Grove, heading south. Here comes the M1 Doodlebug, built in the Rock Hill Furnace shops from a kit from the Brill Company in 1927. Winter Spectacular and Fall Reunion are their two big events throughout the year. They pull out all the stops, including some G-Scale live steam. Here comes EBT number 12 with a freight train. And just across the parking lot, here's the Spider, EBT M716B, a speeder built by the Fairmount Company in 1926. It features sprung benches and a hit-and-miss engine for power. According to the East Broadtop website, the Spider was built in 1920 by the Fairmount Railway Motors Company. This car was presumably used just for track inspections because of its unusual design. In 1984, the Friends of the East Broadtop made it operational, utilizing parts from another inactive speeder. After another overhaul in 2006, this car was put back into operation. Interestingly, this car was believed to be a Fairmount kit based on its design, unlike the rest of the wooden speeders in the collection. They're doing some foundation work on some of the old buildings, so they have to jack the whole building up in order to rebuild the foundations. As we got to the end of our run here, we almost caught up with the M1 Doodlebug. Now the Doodlebug continued all the way down to 475 before coming back. There's a three-way stub switch. We're coming past one of the storage sheds now. That siding goes back to one of the restoration shops, off to the left there. The tall building on the left is the sanding tower. There's a water spout, freshly painted. Going past the smithing shops on the right. That track to the left there goes to the roundhouse. The next siding on the right is where the M3 usually goes. And we're pulling back into the loading area. If you want to learn more about the East Broadtop, check out my other video from 2023. I go over some of the history of the railroad and why it's here. For the last trip of the day, we swing back over to the Rock Hill Trolley Museum to ride their famous Liberty Liner. This one, dubbed Independence Hall, was one of two train sets built for the Chicago, North Shore, and Milwaukee Railroad in 1941 by the St. Louis Car Company. This four-car interurban train featured air conditioning. It was able to operate on the famous Chicago L, and in the Tavern Lounge car, they served up the famous Electro Burgers. When delivered, they were known as the Electroliners. They had 8 traction motors, giving 125 horsepower each, giving the entire train 1,000 horsepower. With those 1,000 horses, they were able to easily reach 90 miles an hour. The North Shore line was abandoned in January 1963, and the train sets were sold to the Philadelphia Suburban Transportation Company, known as the Red Arrow Lines. They ran on the Norristown line from Upper Darby to Norristown. They were named Independence Hall and Valley Forge once on Philadelphia Suburban. Both train sets ran on the Norristown line until the 70s, so they were put up for sale by SEPTA in 1981. The Rock Hill Trolley Museum was the highest bidder for the Independence Hall, and 6 tractor trailers and a large crane were needed to move the train to Rock Hill Furnace. The Liberty Liner was brought back into operation for the first time since 1996 on Members Day in 2011. They bring it out for special events like Fall Reunion only a handful of times a year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Film Crate Media.